here. Approval, acceptance of the December 12th, 2023 meeting minutes. I'm not sure that we have a quorum of those that were present at the last meeting, so I would just ask for an acceptance of the minutes. I printed these off before I got the amended minutes. I did want to note that Mr. Shepherd was not here in December. And so Mr. Schwartz had made the motions. So in lieu of Mr. Shepherd, it would be Mr. Schwartz. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
Move.
Mr. Schwartz, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Jarvis? Okay, and this is acceptance. Mayor Schneider?
Yes.
Council President Gears?
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis?
Yes.
Ms. Hanrahan, yes. Okay, discussion and vote on the 2024 financial recovery plan. Anna Mary, do you want to just kind of guide us through this?
Sure.
Okay.
This was approved by council on April the 2nd. What you have in front of you is what was passed by them. Some of the key things I think you should take away from the assumptions and then the numbers. In the revenues, there is a reappraisal that happened in the county that will affect property taxes this year. It will be a slight increase to the city. Earnings tax, there was a change in the assumptions from previous FRPs. Instead of a 1% increase going into the forecasted periods, they're showing a 2% increase based on the city treasurer's estimates and analysis. There is a decrease in intergovernmental. There is an expected decrease in local government monies, and that would be for any entity that would get that. So that would impact the city of Norwood as well. Other things that look, up or down would be interest. That had been up. If you're going to spend on your money and your balances, then the amount that you have available to put into Star Ohio, which is what they use, there would be less of that. So that would be why the trend is to go down in the interest revenue part of that. That would be the revenue side, big items. Any questions on revenue in the 5-year?
The most material thing there is the earnings tax.
Correct.
Why is that fallen by, almost $1 million?
Mr. Mayor, would you like to answer?
Yeah, the assumptions that were put in are based upon what our earnings tax department provided to us. So this is information that comes from the treasurer. These are projections that they have. There have been some changes in the way earnings tax are collected. There's been changes in the amount of people working within the city of Norwood in physical offices and, physical office buildings. Of course, there's still people that have changed that are working from home that are in Norwood. So it's more or less some of that stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the revenue sources? All right, going into the expenditures for the general fund, some of the big items would be you have union agreements that go through 2024. Those include step increases and 3% increases through that period through the union agreements. They would be in negotiations this year and for their next agreements. No increases to the base salary is projected within this forecasted period for those union agreements. There's still increases in the administrative staff, potentially up to 10% each year, up to their cap potential that has been passed by ordinances through the city council in past years. Other big items is putting in positions that have not been filled. Those are talked about within the assumptions on page 6. Trying to hire a building department manager, trying to get a community development director, getting other areas up to better staffing levels, whether it be the auxiliary police, street and parks, and so forth. Also in there is still looking to do a budget director under, I think it's the safety service director's department. And then also the treasurer's department, if you had looked at it in personnel, there's always been a place for a staff person to be hired there, and that is still expected to occur, and I think it has occurred already. But they were down a staff person in the historical period under the treasurer's department. You can also look at, well, I'll stick with personnel. There's a 6% increase expected on health insurance each year, going into the forecasted periods. There is the employees' portion to be paid, which is 7.5% of the insurances for the employee portion. Other items that are big throughout this, besides those that hit most of the personnel services and expenditures, would be your exhibits in here, and that would be, I believe, Exhibit B, which would be your capital plan. That definitely has an impact on the forecast in front of you. Those are the big items and plans that they have in place that are either hitting capital expenditures or contractual expenditures throughout the different departments. To know why certain departments are going up or down in those areas, you really need to look at this capital improvement plan, because they should coincide with major expenditures. Most of the capital expenditures would match from this page to what you see in front of you under the departments for the general fund. Contractual services may have other items in there, so when you see a bump from one year to the next, that's really coming from this piece of the plan.
This piece.
The capital improvement part of the plan. I didn't want you to think that if you see contractual expenditures on here, that would match onto what's in the department. That's not the case, because there's other normal expenditures in there. It's just that type of expenditure is considered a contractual, not a capital, and that's why it would be slightly different when you're reviewing this. But the capital expenditure should match from the capital improvement plan to here. It also includes some debt instruments that would still have to come to council and the commission for approval, and one of the bigger ones would be under the fire department and looking to finance a fire truck. So that is being projected over years within the forecast for principal and interest and at an estimate. So that is also within this plan, because it would be new. Other big things, definitely there's been some increases in contractual and some materials and supplies. And in talks with the city, there's some needs of increasing some services or allowability to do better services and having the opportunity to have resources at your fingertips to do that. That can be explained by the mayor through this. Those are the big ones that I would hit on here. If you have exact questions that you have, other than fuel costs, that was increased also under transportation, because that's where it's paid from the general fund. Questions on the general fund?
How do we fill our gas tanks with city vehicles?
We have a fuel pump and fuel storage tank over at Public Works, and they all have a card that they use to fill vehicles.
I'm just thinking, taking advantage of, gas prices when they were cheaper, fill the thing up or get another one or something like that.
Well, we do our fuel costs are aggregated with the counties. They bid the fuel cost for us, and then we get into that contract. We started doing that about 4 years ago and have seen some savings through it. Yeah, the challenge with the fuel cost has been that we've had some carryover with bills and different things. So you'll see an increase, but it's not as much of an increase as much as getting caught up finally with some of the stuff that got carried over.
Thanks.
So mine's a general kind of macro question. The expenditures have gone up considerably, or the projected expenditures have gone up considerably, almost $7 million, and exceed our expected income. I'm a fan of the investment in the community. I don't know the details behind all the capital projects, but I would be pleased to see those happen. I just want to make sure that our accounts can absorb that, and that we'll, be okay spending all that money.
Is that a question for me? Question for Anna Mary?
I guess it's a question for you, or either one of you. I don't know enough about the nature of the answer to direct it to anybody in particular, but it is a lot of money.
May I? You want to go ahead? Well,
You can go first,
I
and
have,
then I
I
can-
have two parts of it. One, as a citizen, as a resident of the city of Norwood, if the city has a carryover, a large carryover of funds at the end of the year, I look at it and say, wait a minute, my streets are eroding, my parks aren't as good a shape, the buildings aren't as, I want that money spent on my community. I want my community to be better every year. And if we have a huge carryover, which we have a pretty good carryover right now, I want that money allocated and I want it spent to make my community better. Best in class. Norwood should be the best community it can be. The only way we can do, we can't do that by being misers and saying, well, we're building this big bank account. Let's hold on to it. Let's not fix our streets. Let's not use it to, so that's one part of it. As the mayor, I look at it, I want the city to be best in class. I hear what the people in my community are saying, and that's improve the streets, improve the infrastructure, get us back to a place where it is maintain the beautiful city that we have, less than hear all the complaints and make excuses and it's down the road, it's down the road, it's down the road. So that's why you'll see we are spending, my goal is to utilize the staff we have and to purchase and spend the money that we have to improve our community. Because that's what the taxpayers have given it. That's how the system is set. It's not to have a huge bank account at the end of the year. Now, with that being said, there has to be, and there is money. The way it's put out for the 5-year plan, it's allocated out. And there's a lot more being spent in the front of this. It's always front loaded because council members want it. They want things done. So that's an important part of it. And as a mayor, we're trying to meet the demands of our community members and improve our community long-term, sustainable, and putting in place a system. If this was just 1 year and we were exceeding them and we didn't have some plans, so it's 4 years out and ultimately longer each time we do this, I would be very nervous. But we are working off of a 5-year plan, and it's the right way to do it right now. Let's get our community back in good shape. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
To piggyback off of that, so yes, there's some high balances, there's some high needs within the city. The cautionary tale that I will put in place is this. So at any place where I go and do a budgetary presentation for our office, we're always talking about long-term and monitoring of both revenues and the expenditures. So as this is a plan, and it's the intent and the assumptions as of when they approve these in April, anything can change in the next 6 months, even before you get down to the last of the year. Talk about the northwest portion of our state, did not expect a tornado, and they have heavy damage up there. That can definitely change what you have planned in front of you. Can you project the future that way? No. Do you have to have some things in place to make sure that you have balances there? Yes. What I would caution in looking at the forecast, and we caution this every year, is what is your highest revenue source? And you've already asked about that. Your income tax. It's probably your most volatile on here. If you had somebody leave that's one of your bigger businesses, that's going to have a huge impact, which has happened here at the city many moons ago when they lost their biggest employer. So they've had to go through that before. With that being said, you have to make sure you're monitoring what is actually coming in and are you hitting those. And if you're not hitting your revenues, then you definitely have to look at your expenditures and say, if I'm not hitting that this year, what are we looking at in the next 5 years? And then what do we need to, either increase revenues in a different source or the same source, or do we need to look at what our expenditures are for going out into the 5 years. Great plan. Great to have in place. The monitoring is even more important to make sure that you're looking at that, to make sure that you're getting things in. So when you do a 2% increase, it sounds really small, and I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just saying that's a change that we've not seen here before. There was a huge jump in 23 from 22. So then you talked about why was there a decrease in 24? Well, if you look at that, we had a $2 million increase, and there's and then a $1 million decrease, and then we're projecting in 25 through 28 with a 2%. Is that too high? Is that too low? Don't know at this time. I don't have a crystal ball. They don't have a crystal ball. But it's definitely an area that they need to be watching as we go forward. So my thing is, yes, you need to spend down. You need to use your resources. They know what the needs are within the city because they live here. They represent those that voted for them, right? And including yourself. But the cautionary tale of this is the monitoring now becomes even more important. So that would be what I would caution.
Okay, and so a real specific question, if things played out according to this plan in 2024, how would we feel about our financial condition at the end of 24? Would we be comfortable, nervous, pleased?
If that question is to me, I would be pleased if we could meet and achieve the goals of this plan for 2024, whether that be the street improvements, the infrastructure improvements, improvements to our buildings and facilities, improvements to our but we have seen every year that we've had this plan that we, the administration, the department heads, have not been able to meet the plan as it's passed. We've
spend
really been,
everything that you're trying to.
we've really been challenged, and a lot of that is because we're relatively we proceed with caution. We've got good department heads that are trying to get the best quotes and and they know the right time to purchase things and the wrong time to purchase things, and they're so in that instance, I look at it and say, let's go, let's get them going and moving forward on this stuff. On the other hand, how do I look? I look at 25 and 26. I think we're still going to be in really good shape, and I think we're going to be pushing hard to make the improvements that our community members want to see again. So this, if you look at this is not it is front loaded. It is a spend down of the carryover money that we have, but it's not a fritter it away. It's a planned process. So I look at 25 and 26 as much confidence as I do in 24.
Thanks.
I brought that up at the last meeting.
Okay.
Concern that 12 million, and also we're down to 2 million. And I know where's it going? What are we doing? And then are we going to get back where we were? Catch poor again because we went a little crazy with the Christmas list.
May I?
Can I finish my
Please,
second comment?
please do. Yeah.
All right, we're looking at a 5-year budget here. I'm sitting here imaginarily in 2029, 2030. The economy, from what I hear, is going to crash about that time. What is our 10-year plan or 20-year plan from a cash perspective? We're going to make the investment in the next 5 years. We're going to fix roads. We're going to put in cameras. We're going to do infrastructure. We're going to do those things, and I agree with that. What happens in 5 to 10 years from now as far as the spending? People get used to spending. They get used to making what they're making. Those habits are hard to break. But at this pace, the money won't be there to continue that trend. So what is council? What is the mayor's office? What discussions have been made for that period, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, after we've made these investments?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So first, let me ask the part where I almost interrupted you. Sort of interrupted you. I apologize, but you used the term "all of a sudden," and I look at this and say, I've been mayor for 4 years. I'm in my fifth. All of a sudden is not. This is a 5-year plan, 5-year forecast. So 5 years is a long time. So that's the first part of that. The second part of that is, council members, I'm sitting down with the finance committee. they're talking about what's the path forward, exactly your questions, and maybe you've already talked to some of the council members, but they are asking those same questions. What's our long-term plan? How do we make it sustainable? How do we make sure that the city isn't hitting these peaks and valleys that it's hit for years? And you can ask any of the members of our staff that have been with the city for a long time, they don't want to go anywhere near where we have been over years. And this goes back not just 20 years, but 30 years and 40 years. So how do we fix those things? And they are looking at that path forward. We've engaged a person who's worked with financial operations for a couple of different municipalities, worked for the Auditor of State's office. We brought her in. She's with an organization called Clark Schaefer Hackett, which is, and that's the guidance that we need. We talked about putting a budget director in place, a person that sits in that office and works on just that plan. And I think you're absolutely right. Those are good questions to ask, both on where we are now and where we are 5 years from now and then 10 years from now. So the goal is to put plans in place and to give the finance committee the guidance from professionals that are within the industry, and the industry being municipal finance, and making sure that we've got plans in place so that even when I'm not mayor 4 years from now, it's still, it's like a locomotive or a snowball. It just keeps moving. It's just, you keep moving forward. So those things are being addressed.
What's that gal's name at Clark Schaefer?
Michelle Grice. And she's came in, she's working with the auditor's office, and really, so we have a new auditor, which is Ken Miracle, who used to sit here, right? So we have a new president of council, vice mayor, president of council, with Joe Gears. And so she is working with Ken, who has been intimately involved with the Financial Recovery Commission for years, and really trying to tune up that office also. And that's something that, every time a new person takes over one of these offices where a person has been, the previous auditor had been in there for 16 years, the previous treasurer had been in there for 20 years. So even with the new treasurer, with James Bonzel coming in, he's tuned up that office and really getting it moving. So that's one of the reasons why I feel so confident about where we stand right now, is we've got people that are excited and enthusiastic about making positive changes to those offices. Not that they weren't being ran well in the past, but they're actually looking at the innovative ideas and listening to the Auditor of State's office on how are others doing it just as well or better, and implementing those. That's an important aspect of it. So I think the long-term stability is a good question.
And I would just advise the council going forward to take a serious look at 2028, and maybe even, I don't know if it's possible to put a cap on that balance and say that balance is not going below 2 million, or that, you know what I mean, to where we don't go negative, we don't sit there and live kind of money coming in, money going out, just in case. Maybe that's a protection for a new administration or what have you, to where, I mean, I'm the treasurer of St. Vincent de Paul's charitable pharmacy, and I'm on the finance committee, and they have no shame in building the coffers. They're a not-for-profit. They have investments in millions. And one argument we always talk about is, are we spending enough on care? I mean, some of that is resources and things like that. But that nest egg allows us to grow and be stable, and to build off of that and leverage large capital projects, and to be cash rich while still serving. Now, the goal is always to serve more, and we always question, why are we not spending more? But they have no shame in having a nest egg for that long-term financial security. So I would advise someone, a group, to look at that and consider that. Kind of rainy day money that's there for emergencies that may, whether it's tornadoes, whether it's whatever, and to kind of earmark a little bit of that money and maybe invest it. And because the 20s is supposed to be a great investment market, so there could be 100% return sitting there, or you could go the 5% route with just straight savings department. So I would just say, because we're so aggressively going from 12 million to 2 million over 5 years, in our positive fund balance, that maybe that's a consideration to be discussed.
Can I piggyback off of what Mr. Schwartz has talked about? So there are some resources that governments have that they can do some of that stuff that you're talking about. Under Chapter 5705 in the Ohio Revised Code, there is a section on reserves and set-asides. And then under that, you can do a couple of different things. There's budget stabilization, there's rules to that, which would require them to put so much money aside, and there's rules on how much you put aside that is kind of like the rainy day fund, and that would be on the general fund, and that would be a set-aside. You can also do reserve capital project funds, and that would include vehicle purchases too. So that would include you moving monies from the general fund as a transfer over to those funds. And under the capital reserve, you have 10 years, and you have to specify what you're going to use it for. So whether it's going to be, well, I'm going to use it's a fire truck. You can put monies over there that you may want to purchase something into the future. It may not be enough to cover the whole cost, but it would be enough to put a down payment or reduce what you're going to have to go and borrow for. You can do the same thing for other big projects, whether it's building or road projects as well. So those are at their discretion. You can also build special revenue reserve funds under that same code, and that would be to help pay for people who leave when they retire from the city. You can do setups from that. And that can come from general fund or other funds that pay for payroll, but then that has to be used for those employees. So there is that. There's also room for them to do policies and procedures under budgetary, and the council can approve and say, hey, we want this type of balance at the end of the year. Again, that's all got to go through their legal team to make sure they're not, overstepping a higher revised code, I will say. So there's options out there that they can peruse and do, and we talked about that in our budgetary presentations that we do across the state. So there's those options as well. So future planning can include those. So is that money still coming out of the general fund? Yes, that would be transfers into those funds, but it's kind of like what you're saying, this is my plan, I'm putting my monies over here, that's what I'm going to spend it on, and that's what it's earmarked for. Those are types of things you can do as an earmark that is allowable under the revised code. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Can I piggyback on that? As mayor, I say hooray. And I'm so glad we're having a discussion like that rather than a discussion which we were having just a few years ago. Is like, how are we going to make payroll? We got to scrape some. We got to figure out how are we? We're talking about actually taking funds that the city has and earmarking them and putting them in reserves. I'll say it again, hooray. That's what a great place to be in rather than where we were just, not too many years ago. I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room that say, yeah, I remember when we weren't sure if we were going to get a paycheck this Friday or not. So, and I'm glad that you made that clear because I think that's an important an important aspect of it. Are we at a position now where I'd say, oh, we need to take $1 million and put it into a reserve fund? Well, look at our streets, look at our residential areas, and but we're going to be there. Absolutely. I think in the next few years we're going to be in the position where we say we need to, earmark this stuff, lockbox this stuff and put it away.
A lot of companies look at it, and I'm sure, Tom, you're the same way, is you say, okay, do we have enough for this many months operating expenses? Available.
That's what the 1.7
liquid
is.
assets.
Yeah.
So, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, you could be as aggressive as you think you need to be. I think over 6 months is probably overkill, but, maybe some of these capital projects that you want to protect, and if there's a new mayor coming in, maybe there's a way to, by doing that these things are preserved and somebody doesn't come in the new administration and undo what you've done. Mm-hmm. So that's another option to kind of protect your legacy and the plans we've all worked to put in place. So, again, something to consider, and I think that even the most nominal amount would make some sense. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, one last thing, on property taxes, I know those are pretty much flatline the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. Does it make any sense to increase that? I know that evaluations don't get done very often.
There's a reappraisal every 6 years, which you just had happen for this collection year.
Right.
There's an update on the third year that has slight increases. That potentially it all depends on the area. The county can talk endlessly about that, I'm sure. So within 3 years, you're gonna see maybe an uptick there. Because it's really just inside millage here, and who knows what assessed values are going to be. I think the better approach at this time would be to keep it flatline.
I would say categorically, no, do not increase that at all. I don't know if you've gotten yours, but everybody else, and I've heard about it, and it's a huge hit to the city of
Yeah, I'm
Norwood.
not
It's a
saying
huge hit to
increasing,
the
I'm just
county.
saying if, is there some other factor involved, whether it be, when a house flips, does it get reassessed right away, or does it wait 5 years to get reassessed with everybody else? Because last meeting I brought up the incident of my neighbor's house is sold 3 times while I've been there. Well, my valuation is lower than theirs is, virtually the same house. Well, that's because they've sold it several times, and there's a real market valuation there. So I didn't know if those other factors would come into play. I'm not smart enough to
One of the other
know how that process works. But
One
I
of the
know
other
that,
factors-
you do it every 5 years, and there's your value. So-
Sorry. One of the other factors you have to look at is delinquents too. So where does your delinquents stand within the county and let alone here in the city? So are those on the rise or on the downcline? I worked with Montgomery County at one time. They were projecting those delinquents high, and that's been a while back, higher than most counties would. So it all depends on where you are and what your
It's a
area
crappy
is.
county, though, with all due
Well,
respect.
I would
Well,
not say
I mean,
that. So
I've worked there, I've been there, I've seen
I
it.
just use them as an example because I know that their delinquencies were high at one time. So they were like, we're going to take and take a percentage off of what the projections are because of those delinquencies.
Yeah.
That's probably changed since then. So I would say that you also have to look at that. You have to know what is going on in your area for that, and you have to attribute to that. The other things, I don't know if Mr. Jarvis would want to speak to some of what you have asked, but it's not just the assessed values too. I wanted to put into play their delinquencies as well.
Right. Fair enough.
The only thing I'd have to add is that I happen to have last year's plan with me, and we saw the same general decline in balances on the out years. I think it's my impression that the city is governed a lot better than when we first came in here, and that if there is signs, adjustments will be made. So, and some of those, what's the easiest thing to do? And none of it's easy when you're recalibrating. But one of the first things you're going to look at is probably what have we not started that we can put to the side. So I think that as the finance committee meets, as we get input, and I think the budget director will be really instrumental in assisting on that extra set of eyes to see where they're going. And again, too, I guess, on paper, it looks, oh my gosh, what are they doing? But in reality, it's so hard to project any more than 1-2 years. Anything past that, it's more art than science.
Just ask COVID.
Yeah.
So, Chairperson Hanrahan, I have to leave in a few minutes.
Yes,
Is it appropriate for me to make a motion that we vote?
absolutely.
And I would like to make a motion that we vote on that.
Mr. Shepherd moves. Do I have a second?
I had another question.
Okay.
Before we proceed. Just on fee licenses and permits, I see a big decrease in 2022 versus 2023. I guess, one, I was curious about that trend. And then two, one thing I've heard from just FYI from subcontractors, working around the neighborhood and those houses, guys I've talked to, is that Norwood charges very little for their fees and permits for zone, to remodel something or whatever. That's all I'm saying. So it might, whoever's in charge of that might want to just take a look at the size of our rates, and if they're comparable to other municipalities, that might be a new revenue stream for us, maybe another $100,000 or whatever. But the guy said, God, it's so cheap to rehab in Norwood. I can't believe it. It's nothing like this anywhere else. It's kind of a paraphrase quote. So I've been meaning.
He didn't know who he was talking to, did he?
Well,
Because I hear just the opposite.
yeah, well, yeah, and again, that's the only input I can give you. I'm just saying, if it means anything, take it to heart. If it doesn't, then just forget I ever said it.
Okay.
Most of that is building department fees, so that's the biggest portion of that.
Yeah, it'd be like
source. So, and it does, if
permits,
you looked
right?
if you looked at it from even 5 years out, you'll see down, up. And they had Site 52, that was a big, push
Big
in
permit
the,
push.
yeah.
And
So-
that was the 21, 22 numbers.
Yes, that was actually questioning, because I was like, is that over with? And then I was informed that there's still stuff going on there, and because I asked why are we settling for staying stable, because that thing is up and down all the time, so I did ask the mayor about that.
I would make a second on Mr. Shepherd's first, that we vote on for the passing of the financial recovery plan.
Okay. I will, okay, Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Council President Gears,
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz,
I approve.
Mr. Shepherd,
Yes?
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis.
Yes.
Ms. Hanrahan, I do, yes. And what I will do is have we're gonna pass around the original of the plan, council's original signatures are on it, and then we will sign it as well. Okay,
Was there any issue with us approving this like in April or council approving it in April? I remember in the past years, it was like by March 31st
I mean,
or something.
technically, we should have had it in, the commission should have had it via email in March. We were getting together in April and.
Any issue legally with that?
No, because, I mean, there is information in the revised code that would basically say that failure to submit a plan or an update would bring you, they've changed the code, so I may be misquoting, but would bring you back to 85% of your appropriations. By the time we would implement that, we'd be here to vote on it, so there would.
It's not worth
And
anybody's
really,
trouble.
that, while that is an option, and it is an option that. Well, it is an option and an option that has been exercised in some cases. It really, I mean,
That's all we can fly.
everyone was doing due diligence and we knew that we were going to get a plan, so. Now, if you had asked me this and it was May instead of April, then we may have had to do something.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm sorry I have to leave.
No, I fully understand. You know, when they cancel meetings and then they reschedule them and you happen to have them rescheduled on the same day,
Yeah.
it's out of your control. But thank you. Thank you for attending. Oh, you know what? Okay. Thank you. All right. Old business, new business. I'm going to skip the ones that are on here. I'm going to go to the other, simply because we do have something different instead of what we normally have under old business, new business. So it's the Auditor of State's engagement letter. Basically, this is a professional courtesy, just like attorneys will give you a letter saying for X amount per hour, whatever, or a flat fee, this is what you can expect in services from me. And this is, I have to cut to the chase. It is net for and this is the cost of services. So it's a calendar year, which is your budget year, January 1st through December 31st, 2024. It's not anticipated to exceed $50,000. And that is a cap that is like the ceiling. And it all depends. It depends on how many times the auditor's office has to come in. And as maybe perhaps as we discuss the progress on the reconciliation, maybe those services aren't needed for as long or as many people to assist, so that cost per year may go down. Now, what I will do is I will sign this stating that I have gone over this with the commission, but Mr. Miracle's signature needs to be on this because he has to then, by him signing this, he has to put a purchase order in place to guarantee that the funds are there.
Do you know what those amounts have been historically?
I do not.
50.
50?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I figured it sounded,
We've used it,
Okay.
yeah.
and
Hey, it's,
they've provided service.
yeah, no argument there.
I mean, seriously, it's not like they're trying to run the meter.
No, I
it
mean,
is
there's
because
other,
they
there's
have
other
so
pools they can
many
dip
other
into that, they don't need our 50 grand.
competing, right?
Yeah, I got
right.
it, I got it.
The other thing, Mr. Schwartz, was with the way we work, if we don't need all 50,000, the city actually needs to bill for what we
Yeah, just up to 50, yes, yeah. I assumed it wasn't 50 whether you use it or not.
We had some people question that, so I just wanted to be.
I got you, I got you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Other items. Anna Mary, do we have an update on the bank reconciliation?
Yes, I do. The treasurer's office here has reconciled through February of 2024. There is research being done on the known reconciling items, and what do you mean by that? That means where do we need to change the books, what funds are affected and how, and so that's being researched by both departments. When that is done, then we'll look at the unknown. So we need to get what is being determined that this is either not in the books or in the books incorrectly. In that aspect, we'll work on the unknown. But they are more up to date now, and the city treasurer's office is doing those. We are looking at those from afar and in person at times to make sure what is being presented is accurate and fair. So they're back on track.
Okay.
When's
Sounds
the last
good.
time that happened?
The city doing it itself, it's been a while. And the system and other things that have went on, it has been difficult. But kudos to the treasurer's office and those who are performing that. We've had lots of sit-downs, lots of changes on how that has to occur. It is done by paper. It can't be done in the system as of right now, which we've talked about. So great going forward. But we just need to now fix what's been known as an issue and then look at the unknown.
I'd say congratulations.
Yeah, definitely.
That's an achievement.
Definitely.
So.
Report on accounting methods.
Okay, there is that in front of you. What I'm going to say is this, you can look at all the comments and where things are. They do have somebody in here from an outside source that's working majorly with the city auditor's office, but also with other departments. I know that they are working on policies and procedures. I have not seen those yet. They were to come to us at the end of the month. We're only 1 week into April. Hopefully we see those soon. Our office would look at those first before they would even come to council for approval to make sure it hits all the requirements. We had a long discussion with the new city auditor and that person that they have hired on what it's going to take to get those comments cleared. We went very in-depth in that conversation. That happened in February. I will tell you that there are a few that dropped in this that were cleared that we do not consider that anymore. We consider it in process, and that's part of our review process. I'll just use budgetary as an example. There was an appropriation that went through that never hit the city auditor's office, and it never hit my hands. And it was not for any of the funds that were within the FRP, but all funds have to go through the city auditor's office and then through our office because they're in fiscal emergency. Was approved by council. I know that there has been communication that went out stating, don't ever do that again. That came from the city auditor's office and then also came from me. So I do not expect that to happen again, but that did occur. We've had a couple of invoices that were paid late. That was a problem. And again, they're working on changing some policies and procedures. So we have had changing of guards and changing of people. This is why those things are so important, that you have something in hand that states this is the process you're supposed to follow, so that those dips don't occur. Those have all been addressed. They are being reconciled. I'm just telling you, within the first couple of months of I already know some things that have went the opposite of what they were originally. There's strides, though. We already talked about the reconciliation, that it's more up to date, and we're working on those reconciling items. I did receive where they're doing sign-offs late last night. I did not look at those, so I can't say that they are cleared because I have to see them in person. And then I'm going to actually look at the actual documents in front of me too. So most of this has stayed the same for the most part. I'm really looking to get those policies and procedures updated and to us and reviewed. And then we're looking to come back in here and do some testing. The majority of the focus in the front part was having those discussions with the city auditor's office, their contracted person, and to really know what has to happen in regards to getting these things cleared. And very point-blank conversations on that. Working through the FRP when it was sent to us, and the American, it definitely state that we go through that with a fine-tooth comb. There's a lot of review back and forth through that whole process. And then we've had a majority of budgetary questions and some purchase order questions that have come up in this front part of the year as well. So it may not look like there's some movement. I know there's movement. I just haven't seen any drafts. Those should be coming to our office soon. When we get those, we'll be reviewing those and getting them back and saying, this works, this doesn't work, that doesn't hit this point, whatever the case may be. So that's kind of where this stands. I would say the biggest area of movement has been the bank reconciliation, which is one of the things we really stressed upon the last time we were here. Questions?
No, I'm pretty happy, actually. I mean, there's strides. Not that there wasn't before, but I'm really thrilled about the policies, because that, to me, that's your Bible, that's your cookbook. Somebody leaves, somebody retires, you hire somebody new, you don't have time to sit by and have them go through every step. You've got the policy or the procedure there, the manual, it's the how-to. That's great. Anything else? Any other old business, new business? Mayor, I didn't
Exterminator?
I know.
Baby spider.
Oh. Spring.
Yes.
Is what it is.
Yeah, spring. Mayor, anything for us? I didn't put it on the agenda, but
No, Anna Mary stated that they go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and it's true. And when that information comes through, we spend a lot of time researching, and most of the time, the things that she's listed out there are, corrections or things, there was a formula problem, or, I mean, it's an in-depth review of the financial recovery plan, and it's, it is a fluid document. I mean, as we sign it today, as she mentioned in the meeting, things change regularly. So, but I do appreciate all the work that you guys have done, that you provide for the city, and the commission provides that guidance. And, this has been I would not say it's just something we're doing right now. It's something that sets the stage for the future. And we talked about the future, and that's an important aspect of what we're putting in place. Like Anna Mary talked about, that policies and procedures and the changing of the guard. And I think it's been some of those things that have caused the city's peaks and valleys through the years. And if we can, over the next few years, if we can really get these just put in place, and then the city moves forward and we don't run into problems that we've ran into in years past. So I do appreciate everything that the commission is doing. Thank you.
Mr. Years, welcome.
Thank you.
Anything you'd like to say to the commission?
I guess just a couple things. You mentioned
Okay.
policies and procedures. One of the things we've taken up as council, as committee of the whole, we are working on standard operating procedures for council. I don't believe there's anything documented. We are also working on a new council orientation, and I know there was a comment about looking beyond 2028. Council is also looking at, we're in the beginning phases of working on a master plan for the city. So that is obviously something that would be key and important going forward.
Very good. Good to know. Very good to know. Well, when shall we meet next?
This is dependent upon receiving the policies and procedures and review. When you
And
look
put
at,
in place,
excuse me?
and put in place. You have
And
to
put in
test it.
place. So that's a question of, you've seen this completed at other communities. What's, when you look at that timeline, do you look, and do we base our next meeting upon that? And our next meeting is really to go over the report on accounting methods and that checklist?
It's gonna take a while, is what I will tell you. There's certain big policies and procedures that have got to be worked on. So I haven't even seen any of them, so I don't even know what the stages of them are. So it's really unfair for me to give you a timeline when I don't have a really good idea, when I haven't looked at any. So what I would say is that the last time we worked on a policy and procedure, and it was only one, and that was the asset one, I think that took over 2 to 3 weeks, if I remember right, between what was written originally, discussions we had, get it to where we were good with it, and then it went to council. So probably about a month is what it took to get from ours to council, and that was only one. And definitely, we made sure that things were in place for the future on that one, because there were new accounting pronouncements, I'll say, that's GASB pronouncements that had to be put into play. So that was one, that took a month. And then we were looking at what the changes are and some of that, and then there's new forms that are being used on that, and we had to come in and we even changed the forms on that. So just the policies and procedures themselves, when we get them, it may take a month and a half to get through us to get to council, depending on how in depth they are. And there's some, we're talking purchasing, those are big. And what is in place there in the revenue side of the world, that's more strenuous than what the asset policy was. I'm just going to be honest. So, and then we got to make sure that, okay, you said you're going to do this. Are you actually doing it? And that's going to have to be at least a month or two of testing on that. Like, not us testing it for a month or two, you putting it in place. We see that it's happening for the next couple of months. So
Here's what I would say to you as far as meetings are concerned. I know that in the capital plan, the fire chief was looking at buying a ladder truck. So we're likely going to have a special meeting on that one. And that will be, the special meeting will only be for the fire truck or any other debt. And what I would say too is soon, because council's got to know, it has to be approved by council. I know it's a lot of hoops. But I will give you my phone number and call me and we'll see what we can do on this. I would just warn folks that we will likely come together before we would, just based on what Anna Maria said, to do the debt on the fire truck. I can see that. And I do know that the prices,
Are you
it's
talking to
changing.
me about getting your, or you're talking
No, I'm
you're looking
talking
down
about-
at the fire chief?
Yes, I'm
To talk to him about
directly.
when we need to set a special meeting.
Yeah, because I don't know. It's all going to, I want folks to know that this capital plan is part of the FRP, which we voted on. So things will start happening on that, and that our next meeting should not be an impediment to them going out and getting contracts and getting quotes and getting the financing to set up so that we can go ahead and approve it. Obviously, it has to go before council.
Okay, since we have the chief and you're addressing the fire chief here, why don't we ask Chief McCabe to come up to a microphone and explain to us the process on purchasing a fire truck so that, and the timeline, because this is the important part of it, and I guess that's why he reached out to you.
Well,
is to
actually,
talk
he
about-
didn't.
The safety service director actually reached out to my office first, and then I reached out to Sharon, and then the fire chief has had questions since that, what was produced. What happened is, do we have to have approval through the commission, let alone council, for that debt instrument to be put in place since you're in fiscal emergency? The answer was yes, it has to come in front of the commission. So the timetables then are, what are those? And then I know that he's working on that stuff. We did have a conversation this morning about that, because he was wanting to know, you have interest rates that are only good for so long. And if you want him to, you can have me speak to that. But it's got to come through council first. Commission cannot look at that or approve it, which was
Okay,
stated, until council approves it.
Okay, let's clarify that, because I was not involved in any of those conversations. The safety service director or the chief did not call and talk to me about those conversations. So I would like to know what exactly you're telling the chief, that you two are telling the chief, so that I'm on the same page as my administrative department head, as well as my safety service director. So can you clarify what we're doing with this fire truck and how he's coordinating that with?
Are you asking me or the chief?
I guess I'm asking Sharon. She's the one who was
No,
setting a time
actually,
with.
I didn't have a discussion with Chief McCabe. I've been watching Norwood TV, and he's gone to council. That's why I want folks, anybody in the audience or any city department, when you're going to incur debt, it has to go through the commission. Now, I don't want the commission, for something like copier leases, that's a cost of doing business. Is it debt? Yeah, but it's
Is there a
not.
dollar amount?
It's not. There isn't. That's a problem in the code.
Okay. I thought at one point it was maybe.
And
200,000
originally,
or
it was
something.
meant to be. There's more emphasis in the revised code placed on bonding, those kind of secured debts like that, as opposed to loans, which are also debt obligations. But there isn't as much, there's many more sections of a revised code based on like bans and tans and all those fun little things. But as a matter of speaking, as a matter of doing business, municipalities do purchase fleet, cars, vehicles. That's an interest rate, that's a loan, and some of that stuff is going to be paid through cash. Hence, what I saw anyway in looking through the FRP, some of the disbursements. But on something like a ladder truck, that's going to be debt.
So, just to clarify, Chief McCabe, your conversation with Anna Mary was about the fire truck, and can you clarify to the commission, because others in the commission are not watching council meetings and finance committee meetings, to the commission, what it takes to purchase a fire truck, and what the key that you keep bringing to us is the timeline of purchasing fire equipment on that scale. And that's important for, I think, for all of us to understand, especially as we set our next date for our meeting, which is what the conversation we're in. But go ahead.
Certainly. So, being fortunate enough to have purchased a major capital asset for the fire department, in 2020, we purchased an engine company, which went through financing. So I'm very familiar with the process in terms of getting that contract done, getting the interest rate set, bringing that to council for approval, and then having to get the blessing here. And this is the end step. We generally are in process. The assistant chief and I have worked through this stuff day and night. Fire trucks are expensive. Over the 5 years when we purchased, before we purchased, the running average in this county, a fire truck back in 2019 was about $500,000. It's upwards of $1 million for a fire engine. Ladder trucks are 1.4, 1.7. And then you're also looking at delivery times, like I ordered that truck today, I won't see it for 3 years. Interest rates are volatile as well. I mean, we've got financing piece done right now that holds us at like a 5.3% interest rate for municipal purchase package. But that timeline's for May 1st, right? So that puts a lot of onus on us as we look at these plans. And the mayor provided us the initial draft of the FRP so we can start working on what we need to do. And building a fire truck isn't like going to our dealership and picking out what's on the lot. We have to be very, very specific in terms of how we operate, what we carry, the amount of equipment that we carry, where will it go in the truck, and that's a elongated process. And we're in a position actually to move forward. But that's just, we've done our due diligence, have really worked through looking at the timelines are, what we need from a department standpoint. So we could have a package ready to go. Depending on next council meeting, we could probably have it in front of them. Not this meeting tonight, but the next meeting. So we could have it in front of everyone in 2 weeks. That's how much work we put into it already. But it's substantial. I mean, you're talking major investment. And the bad part is waiting 3 years for that investment to actually be delivered. That's tough. But I think the city has been proactive in terms of what we look at, getting the money up front and then paying it down. Typically, we used to pay for fire trucks 10-year purchases, and while they last for 20 years, that's not terrible. But when you're talking about interest rates in 2020 being 1.6, now we're talking 5.1, 5.3. It's a big difference when you're talking about, a $2 million investment. So we certainly can be ready, knowing and understanding the process. It's just a matter of, the appetite of the administration to say, we're ready to move on this. You feel comfortable with it. Get it in front of council for them to at least digest and say, yes, move forward. While it's in the plan, it certainly makes it easier. It's all part of the steps. So knowing what the total cost for us was, my question directly to Anna Mary is, if the financing piece needed to carry 6 years or 7 years, is that doable as the plan sits? And we talked about, yes, as long as it's planned for and we continue that piece out past the 5 years, we can certainly do that. So we have some significant needs in the fire department, much like anyone else in the city. This plan, I think, starts targeting those things for us and will put us in a really, really good position in terms of, when I retire, hopefully they'll be in an apparatus replacement schedule that's set, and they don't have to worry as much. It's not a holy cow, we got to get this done. So, and we're in a much better spot than we were before the mayor took office. They've worked really hard in terms of listening to us and trying to set apparatus purchase schedules. It's significant,
So, go ahead.
How much of that money is due when you order the machine, the truck?
Well, it depends. If we were in a position to prepay, we could get some semblance of a discount.
I just bought a Mazak machine, $350,000, and it was 10% up front, like 50% upon delivery, and 40% once it's up and operational. So if it's a 3-year period, I guess my thought is, that's why I'm so curious, is interest rates are going to go down at some point. I think that's, I won't say it's a guarantee, but most people think that's the trend. If not, maybe second half, maybe first half of next year. That seems to be what's going to happen. If we don't need to lock in that loan until later, I think there's interest savings to be had if we can defer those payments back as far as we can, particularly they can't expect 100% when they're not going to provide you anything for 3 years. So
Apparatus purchasing expects 100% contract signed with financing in place. We can prepay it up front, or we can pay it along the line. That's how apparatus purchasing works for municipalities. The 3 years, it's 4 years for some manufacturers. That's just the game. We did the same thing with our ambulance. Ambulance purchasing, because we signed a contract to pay cash, we'd be able to hold on to that cash because it's COD with ambulance. But you're only talking a $225,000 investment. We're talking millions of dollars with this. And for us, we want to get it paid down sooner than later. If we actually have it structured so we start paying on it this year, and it'll save us some significant interest payments by early paying this year. Most places would have us sit on we'd sign the contract, and our first payment would be due for a year from here, and then it'd be between 5 and 7 equal payments.
That's maybe the key, is the early payment. No penalty for early payment to get rid of some interest.
That
Yeah,
is,
I'm just thinking long-term, when we're talking tens of thousands of dollars of interest in a high interest, higher than lately interest rate environment, a big purchase like that, that can mean, you know, $100,000, it can mean whatever. So I just wanted to see what our options were as far as, we're saying, hey, yeah, we're gonna pay cash. And, you know, it didn't work out. Truck's ready, we got a financing deal and it's at 2%, 3%. I mean, I'm.
unfortunately, that's not the way it works
It's
with municipal finance and
I mean,
purchases.
it's
So.
bullshit. They ask for 100% up front. I mean, it's like, you got the order.
Well, it's a special order, though.
Yeah.
Want a down
What if you
payment.
can't pay?
Well, I mean,
That's just not the
people do special
reality.
orders all the time and don't charge 100%,
Yeah.
you know?
Unfortunately,
I mean,
yeah.
there's gotta be you'd think there'd be some flexibility, some reasonableness there, but maybe not. I don't live in that
So,
world.
if I understand correctly, tonight is a council meeting,
Correct.
so that you won't be ready. The next council meeting is when? The 23rd of April?
2 weeks. Yes, so yes.
Okay. So should it come before council then, council approves it, we would have to meet very quickly after that because we're coming up on May. And that interest rate is only held till May. Okay,
I had a follow-up question, if I could.
sure.
So you have to say we're 100% and you have to pay them 100% when you order it.
We don't pay them 100%. We sign a deal with the municipal finance company, whether it's Rev Group or Republic National, and they say, hey, we hold on to
We'll
it.
provide you this money.
Yeah, so it's
when would the first payment be due?
Our first payment would actually come out in June of this year,
Okay, and then the next
Before
one.
you got it.
June every year.
Okay. That being said, you don't need all that $2 million today.
No, it's in the plan over.
I mean, are you able to like finance the first payment?
No,
Finance,
you're-
I mean,
you're-
have you like
you're financing the
they will
entire-
promise you $2 million, but I don't need $2 million today. I need
Right.
$500,000.
That's why it's in the plan that way. If you look at the plan, the city
Right.
will output 400,000. Probably the way we have it set up, it was 390.
544 something
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know it's
for the
specific line.
Well,
first.
that includes
2
an interest
years.
principal payment on the engine company that is almost.
Okay, so it'd be like 5 installments?
Yeah, well, it depends. Depends on what we do. We're looking at potentially carrying that over a 7-year plan. So we were looking at $390,000 over 7 years. But in order to move forward, we had to make sure that, hey, will this work? Will the city say we're going to carry this past the 5 years? Because that's all you have in front of you is 5 years. In order to be conscientious, say this is what we're doing. One, will this be approved by the commission? Can it be approved by the commission? Was the first question. Because we're only looking at 5 years. If we take it to 7, what's that look like? And the city isn't paying, that cash isn't leaving the city's hands until those payments are due. So they're signing basically a promissory note.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was trying to get
yeah.
at. It's just
Yeah.
when is the cash going out?
Yeah.
And what can we do to minimize
But,
the
so
cost of that
we're
cash?
trying to make sure we minimize it by prepaying earlier. I asked specifically for when we get our financing quotes that we would make payments starting this year. Like as soon as we have the contract signed and ready to go, we'd want to make that first payment.
Is that a fixed rate?
Yes.
So I'm going to go back to the beginning. The question that was posed to us was, are we able to move forward? The first answer is it in the plan? And is it in the and is it as a financing instrument? It definitely is. So that was the first question I posed back. Second thing is, does this commission have to approve it? That I sent to Sharon. Sharon said, yes, the commission will have to approve it, not just council. So that was the answer I gave back to the safety service director in regards to the question that came from the fire chief to him, then to us. The discussion this morning was making sure that, okay, well, my financing is like 7 years and you only got a 5 year. Is that going to cause a problem? Great question. No, I said, because it's in the plan now and it should continue to stay in the plan as long as we go forward. As long as that occurs and is presented to us as such, you should be able to approve it. Then I was like, when's your financing set for? And then we had that discussion, and then that was going to be a follow-up question with those that would be approving, whether it's council, administration, and so forth. So the only questions that has all been addressed here, I just want to make sure that everybody knows all the way through, is, okay, I found out this morning it was good through the May, and I was like, okay, when's council approving it? We don't know for sure. Then I said, well, then we've got to turn around and get a special meeting set, and then we started our meeting. So, we haven't had that discussion, I don't think with all parties, it's out there now. We definitely have to have a special meeting to get it approved before then, because if we get it approved through council and then not us, the commission, I should say, by the first, then he's looking at new work, and new interest rates, and it's not locked in at that time, so then it would be a hard approval for this commission. So, that's what we're kind of looking at. So the special meeting is, hey, we're going to have to do this because yes, it's in the plan, but it still requires an additional approval through council, even though it's in your plan and appropriations soon to be in your appropriations. And then also through the commission, and then we're saying, yes, it was in the plan and we're good to roll with it. So that's the part of the process, and due diligence and asking to make sure that that's being done up front is great to see from the city too.
Will you have, when you submit to council, you'll have like the promissory note, or at least like
Well, the financing
the
agreement,
terms?
the contract for purchase, we
Okay.
would have all that before
And the
we
interest
before we
rate and
even
the cost.
entertain putting it on the agenda. Yes, we'd have all that set.
And that's what we would need to see, so, okay,
Yeah, luckily, I've done this before for the commission, so
okay.
it
Now,
won't be terrible.
I'm not going to put pressure on Mr. Gears here, but I just have to assume that council's gonna approve it on the 24th. I'm sorry, the 23rd, which means we should probably meet the 24th or the 25th. And we only need 4 for a quorum
What month?
of this month.
That is Administrative Professionals Day. Might be a conflict.
Well, you're just going to take your administrative professionals out to lunch another day.
It works for me.
The 24th?
That's fine.
Okay. 9:30?
So that's not a special meeting, that's just a
It
regular
is,
meeting.
yes. Will this room be available? Or we'll find a room. We can sit on the stairs. I really don't. We need to do this.
And is it a special or regular?
It's a special meeting. And this will also give us the opportunity to think about when we'll want to set the next meeting.
Why is this a special meeting?
Because we're only going to discuss the loan, and that's it.
Why would we not have a discussion about the policies and procedures that hopefully should be received by then and be able to get an update on that?
I don't know if I would have an update by then. I don't know where they stand. I haven't got to talk to Ken to see where they stand, so I can't.
But, okay, but right now we're excluding it clearly. It was supposed to be to you by the beginning of the month. We're only in the beginning of the month,
End of March.
end of March. So we're at the beginning of this month. You don't have them yet, but we expect to have them. You're saying that's only 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks away, that it doesn't even matter putting that on there. Okay, I understand.
What time would that meeting be?
9:30?
Okay, and it's gonna be like 15 minutes probably.
Yep,
That's fine with me, yes.
I know.
And you need to be present to vote.
Yes, yeah, we do. Until the legislature changes that. And there's some talk in certain circumstances. I've not really followed that, so. Okay, 9:30 Norwood.
Might I add to the discussion, while we had the fire chief up here and we had the police chief in here a little bit earlier, you know, when we talk about long-term planning, the fire department puts together long-term plans. I mean, they recognize that these are huge expenditures. They spend the most money on the equipment that they need to provide the level of service that they have. that is all part of putting together that budget person and working with the fire chief and the assistant fire chief to implement these into a long-term plan. Well, maybe it is a 10-year plan, but then we talk about the city's comprehensive plan, and that has to be an aspect of it. And that's where we really have strength in some of our administrators, and I know our safety service director brings them together and they work. And I think that's something that we in the next few years will see really coming to fruition. That's all I had.
Okay. No, that is, not to downgrade or ignore, I mean, all the departments are essential to running the city, but it's your safety services that are so integral. I mean, they're a huge cost and they're a huge blessing at the same time, so, a major part of the city. All right, so we'll have a special meeting, and I would now look for a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Mr. Schwartz, Mr. Jarvis seconds. On a voice vote, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.